A teenage model who was sexually assaulted in a busy train station just yards away from her mother has waived her right to anonymity to urge other victims to speak out. Harriet Lane was groped as she walked through the barriers at Newcastle Central Station after visiting a friend in Barnsley. The 16-year-old was no more than 10 feet away from her mother Sarah, who was there to collect her when Stephen Cartwright, 55, touched her in August last year. Scroll down for video. It was the first time the current Miss Teen Time and Wear Galaxy had been allowed to travel on her own, making her feel grown up. But as her mother caught sight of her, she saw her in floods of tears. Now she says the ordeal has left her feeling sick, anxious and unable to travel alone. Harriet, of West Allotment, North Tyneside, explained, "It was the first time I'd traveled alone and felt really responsible and grown up. I'd traveled on trains with my mum so many times for modeling jobs, so I knew it wasn't a problem. I had my hands full with my suitcase and handbag and walked through the underpass. He walked past and grabbed me on my bum. It was humiliating. In that moment I felt disgusted in myself. I instantly got upset and shouted, 'You can't do that.' He just walked off. It was overwhelming. I didn't realize it was something serious enough to complain about, but when Mum told me otherwise, I felt like something could actually be done about it." Harriet had to go through the station underpass to exit the station building, which is where she was confronted by Cartwright. She was wearing denim cut-off jeans, a sweater and trainers. After explaining what happened to her mother, Ms. Lane shouted at some police officers patrolling the station, who chased after her attacker and arrested him. Harriet, who was teased for being 6 foot tall as a 13-year-old, said the full impact of what happened only hit her a few days later, before the incident played out in court, and continues to affect her to this day. The fashion business and retail student said, "I was definitely more withdrawn and had bad anxiety because of it. I felt sick, dizzy, out of breath and scared. I still can't bear to be in a crowd with people behind me. It freaks me out. The first time I went back on a train to go to a modeling job in London a week later, I was in a state as it brought back memories of what happened and made me worried it would happen again. Coming back from London, knowing we would be arriving at Newcastle train station, was difficult. I was physically sick all the way home from York onwards and just couldn't stop and was shaking. I couldn't travel on the train for a good while after that." Stephen Cartwright of Newton Aycliffe pleaded guilty to 2 counts of sexual assault at North Tyneside Magistrates Court on February 15, 2018. He was sentenced to 250 hours of community service, 20 days of rehabilitation, and was ordered to pay £100 compensation and to sign the sex offenders register for 5 years. Harriet's mother, a marketing director, said the assault had stolen part of her daughter's childhood. The 44-year-old said, "I met her at the train station and was smiling and waving at her as I hadn't seen her for a week and was all excited. I was waiting on what I thought was the other side of the exit barrier, but it wasn't, so Harriet walked round and had to go under the footbridge. The station was absolutely rammed at the time. I was no more than 10 feet from the footbridge and she wasn't out of my sight until she had to walk underneath." Harriet had gone from laughing and smiling while walking past the barriers to tears pouring down her face when she came out of the underpass. You could see she was distressed and didn't know what to do. She was in a right state. When I asked her what had happened, she was just shaking her head. Then she said, "A man touched me. There was a policeman directly behind me, so I shouted over and within minutes they caught him." Harriet first thought was that it wasn't enough of an assault for the police to be involved. "It's horrible to think we need a quantity of it." She blamed herself and felt she'd maybe got it wrong. "I felt so angry and upset. I can't even put it into words. It's so disgusting to do it to any human being. It's such a violation." It was her first time traveling on her own. It should have been one of those moments of being grown up, getting older, and being trusted to go out and about on your own. Instead, it took away some of her childhood innocence. You don't want to have to explain to your child that kind of thing. Harriet has made the brave decision to share her experience, to highlight what she went through and encourage others to speak out. She said, "I want to be able to educate people, to let them know it's not okay. In the moment you need to know that, and that the people doing it can't get away with it. The more I speak about it and the more people group together and know that, the better. I think the Me Too campaign is so inspiring. It's great that everyone involved is taking a stand." showing you don't have to bottle it up and that there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Harriet was always taller than the average height for girls her age when she was growing up. At 5 she was 3 inches taller, and by the time she was 10 she was almost 6 inches taller. Based on her current growth rate, doctors believe Harriet, who lives with mother Sarah, father Bill, and brother William, will grow to be 6 feet 3 in tall. Her height has left her suffering with low blood pressure that often leads to blackouts. She also had to face bullies growing up, but managed to prove her critics wrong by entering several junior beauty pageants. Detective Chief Superintendent Paul Fernell, head of crime and public protection at British Transport Police, said of the case, tackling sexual offences and any form of abuse on the railway is a priority for British Transport Police. We have worked hard in recent years to provide swift support to victims and ensure that any report of an offence of this nature will be taken seriously and will be investigated. Our Report It to Stop It campaign aims to encourage victims to report any unwanted sexual behavior that they may experience on the rail network, and I would encourage anyone who is subjected to any form of harassment or abuse to inform us as soon as they reasonably can. Time is of the essence, not only for us to respond to your report, but also to get you support should you need it. Every report helps us to build a picture of offending behavior and gives us the ability to target perpetrators. We have specially trained officers who work hard to identify and find those who are responsible. If you are a victim of a sexual offense or any form of unacceptable behavior or harassment, then please text British Transport Police on 61016 or call 0800 40 50 40.
Where the freaks at?